Welcome, all you Halloween babies out there. This is episode 3 of Halloween Babies Podcast, and I am your host, Billy D, coming at you from Richmond, Virginia. This episode is being released on October 31st, 2023. Yes, Halloween. Are y'all having a good one? I hope so. Today is not only Halloween, but it is my birthday. I am 47 today, and I'm also celebrating 2 years of sobriety from alcohol. And I gotta tell you, I'm so glad I made that decision, because if I did not, I would definitely not be recording this podcast, and I would almost definitely not be walking this earth, if you get what I'm saying. So anyone out there, if you're struggling, it does get easier. Just stay persistent and you will reach that light at the end of the tunnel. So, what do I want to talk about this episode? Well, first, I'd like to start off by talking about the 18th Annual Richmond, Virginia Zombie Walk. Now, I've been a part of just about every zombie walk we've had, going back to the early days when it was maybe 50 people doing a flash mob style zombie walk, just picking random spots around the Richmond area and going around freaking people out. It has grown over the years. I think at its height, we had about 600 or 700 people participate. And how it normally goes is everyone meets up. We go over the rules, we award prizes, take photos, and then we go to a location which has been Carytown for quite a while now. It's this area just full of restaurants and shops, and there's a movie theater, several grocery stores, so it's a highly populated area, and it almost becomes like a parade of sorts. We meet at one side of Carytown, walk down the street, cross over, and walk back on up, and the whole time, we're screaming brains, we're moaning, we're shuffling about, we're doing our thing, and it's super fun. I get way into it. We wear contact lenses, all types of appliances, stage blood, fake limbs and fake body parts and guts and things just kind of all over the place. Usually my wife attends it with me, and she's not a big fan of it, but she loves me, and so she does it to humor me, I think, and I love her for that. We've been Wayne and Garth zombies. We've been chef and waitress zombies. We've been nun and priest zombies. I was a construction worker zombie one year. This year we were a bride and groom zombie. And I have a nice suit that I've kind of been working on the past couple of years, where I kind of hide one of my arms in my suit and have this dangling, emaciated, chewed up nub of an arm kind of hanging and swinging on my side. My wife had a beautiful white wedding gown on, and I think we kind of stole the show a little bit, as we do every year, if I do say so myself. But I get way into it, screaming, moaning, shuffling around. People are taking pictures of us, filming us. At one point, a woman walked by with her baby and said, "Can I get a photo?" and just handed us this little baby. And she took her photo and then grabbed the baby and left. And it's a good time. I highly recommend it. If you've got a zombie walk in your town or city, give it a shot. Back in my days of drinking, I used to get hammered and just have a great time. But I don't need to do that anymore. And one year, actually, I had an ambulance called on me as I was stumbling my way home. And the paramedics had a nice laugh over that. It was quite memorable. Now, I would like to do a run-through of the films that I watched this October. And, of course, I try and do the one horror movie a day, and I really try and, pay attention. I don't just throw something on in the background. I really try and to lock in with these films. I tend to start the month off with physical media. I believe this month I had about 16 or 17 DVD or Blu-rays that I watched, and the rest were streaming or in theater. I also like to start off with some old classics, particularly ones that I haven't seen, and then maybe work into classics that I haven't seen in quite a while. And then I like to pepper in a lot of new releases. And then I finished the month off strong with some of my favorites. So let's see. I started off with 1962's Carnival of Souls, a low budget black and white avant garde nightmare of a film with dancing ghouls and an extremely creepy and aggressive gentleman caller. This is a film about a young woman who gets in a car accident and then things go haywire for her. This film apparently inspired George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead and the film Soul Survivor. Both are highly recommended. The score alone is enough to get you into the Halloween season. This one is a 7.5 out of 10 for me. So next up is the WNUF Halloween Special from 2013. This is a little strange piece of nostalgia. It's this like faux news report about a haunted house, and it plays over like it's recorded over a VHS tape, and it's got fake commercials, and it gets kind of creepy and weird and ridiculous as it goes along. If you do still partake in the alcohol, this is a great one to get together with some friends and just kind of put on and maybe have a drinking game. Party down with this one. I give this one 6 out of 10, maybe a 6.5 out of 10. I believe it's kind of hard to get a hold of. I think you might have to actually purchase a Blu-ray copy of this like I did. Next up was 1944's The Uninvited. This is a classic film that I've heard about. It's a haunted house film. It relies more on melodrama and witty dialogue to help move the story along, and keeps the thrills and scares to a minimum while focusing on the mystery of the ghost's intentions. This one I gave a 6 out of 10. It's a strong little film, but overall, it's not my type of film. I believe my wife enjoyed this a little more than I did. Next up is the 2016 Blair Witch sequel. And, I've been avoiding this sequel due to bad reviews, but I actually like this one quite a bit. It's basically a repeat of the Blair Witch, but it has a bigger budget, better effects, better cinematography as far as drone shots, not so much shaky camera. It's obviously not going to be as monumental and surprisingly powerful and iconic as the first one. It's got a nice atmosphere, tension. There was a scene that was very claustrophobic for me. I gave this one a 7.5 out of 10. I had a good time with it. Next up was 1977's House, and this movie is batshit crazy. Nothing's going to prepare you for this one, man. It's this Japanese film about 7 teenage girls going to a haunted house, and, we get every camera trick that was available in 1977, and that's smashed together with a completely bonkers soundtrack and a plot that was literally created by the director's daughter, a little girl. And yeah, just check this one out and buckle up. It's crazy. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. Next up is the 1931 classic Frankenstein, and it's alive, I tell you, baby. With great set pieces, a surprisingly dark story, and of course, Boris Karloff, who fills the screen like a monolithic juggernaut. Check it out. 8 out of 10. Yes, yes, yes. Next up, I watched When Evil Lurks in theaters, and I'm going to swing back around and talk about this one in just a bit. So, Totally Killer from 2023. This seemed to be like a very popular one with people. It's very accessible. This is probably a good one, to play for your quote unquote normies. If you've got adolescent teenager kids, this is probably one that you can watch with them. It's a fun, cute, and nostalgic slasher. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and it rolls right along. Give this one about a 6.5 out of 10. Next up was a little film called My Animal from 2023. This is a dark coming-of-age story about a young hockey-playing lesbian who's also a werewolf. Sounds extremely interesting, but this one really kind of lacks in the horror. It's kind of got a little bit at the beginning and a little bit at the end, but mostly it's kind of a dark romance. The production is great and the performances and score are all good, but it just didn't have that horror appeal that I really needed. But still, a finely produced film, 6 out of 10. Next up, 2021's The Forever Purge. This might be the only Purge film that I didn't see in the theater. Honestly, the trailer didn't look that strong to me. It looked kind of cheap, and I know these films don't normally have a big budget, but I dived into this one, and man, I'm a sucker for anything post-apocalyptic, and this has that feeling. I feel like if you enjoyed the last 3 Purge films, you're going to dig this one. It's a 6 out of 10 for me. Next up, I went with something classic. The good old Friday the 13th, Part 2 from 1981. Amy Steele, Baghead Jason. What more do you need to know? 8 out of 10. As most of us know, Saw X came out in theaters just a few weeks ago, actually. And, I wouldn't say I'm a big fan of the Saw franchise, but I don't hate it either. And I decided, let's go check out Saw X in the theater. And it's probably one of the best looking and most consistently acted in the Saw franchise. Get ready to sympathize with Jigsaw for an hour and then get down and dirty with some blood, guts, brains, and then more blood. With these franchises, you get unique kills and ridiculously over-the-top set pieces. This one's a very personal film for John Kramer. You get to watch him manipulate the chessboard of these characters and struggles with his unique and twisted sense of right and wrong. It's almost like we're inside John Kramer's mind. I enjoyed this one. It was a 7.5 out of 10 for me. And speaking of Saw, since I knew I was going to see this one, I decided to rewatch the majority of the franchise. I believe I had seen Saw 1 through 7 at least once before. So I rewatched all of those, and then I watched Saw 8, which is Jigsaw. And Jigsaw actually might have been my least favorite one. It looked great, and it was produced quite well, but I feel they kind of dropped the ball with the storyline towards the end there. That was probably one of my least favorite ones out of the Saw franchise, which is kind of crazy because it's the Spierig brothers who directed it, and I love their first three feature films. I highly recommend all three of those. But I guess they kind of didn't really have a feel for what the Saw franchise is about, and they kind of wanted to change it up, and I don't think that was a good idea. I gave Jigsaw a 5 out of 10. All the other Saw movies are anywhere between a 7.5 and a 6 out of 10 for me. I then decided to do a little Tubi roulette, and that was not a good idea. What can I say? It was late at night. I didn't know what I wanted to watch, so I just kind of clicked on something, and I got 2022's The Devil's Stomping Ground. Oh boy. The overall idea could have worked with this one. Some film students go to the woods to make a possession film, but end up turning on each other. Unfortunately, the writing, acting, and execution are also poor. I can't even tell if what I picked up on as satire was on purpose or just a bad film. This is a 2 out of 10. I would say out of all of these this month, avoid this one. Next up was 2010's Kidnapped. This is an extremely effective and engaging Spanish home invasion horror thriller that pulls no punches, man. The cinematography is excellent, and it almost becomes a character of its own as it glides and meanders through the setting of the house that most of the movie takes place in, and then it goes out into the streets of Madrid. The tension, dangers, and brutalities slowly amp up to a boil, and just as you think, we're going to get this happy ending, boom, no sir, you do not. It's hard to watch at times, but it's beautifully executed, quite disturbing. This was a 8 out of 10 for me. Next up was another Tubi pick, and I went with the zombie infected genre, and this is 2022's Among the Living. This is a low budget post outbreak film about a man and his young sister traveling across the countryside trying to avoid the infected who are triggered by the slightest scent of blood. And as far as zombie films go, this is slightly above average. The production looks and sounds great, and most of the acting is solid, but the story is lacking, and we are limited to a handful of infected. This was filmed during the height of the pandemic, and you can definitely tell because it wears its limitations on its sleeve. This was a 5.5 out of 10 for me. So now we were getting into the last stretch of October, and, I'm trying to fill it with the heavy hitters. So first up on that list was Halloween 3 Season of the Witch from 1982. And, we all know the story of this one. It came out, everyone hated it. Years later, people watched it. Now everyone loves it. It's just a wild little ride. And, this time when I watched it, I was just really feeling the score. The score is just amazing in this. You haven't checked it out, and I don't know why. You need to. This is an 8.5 out of 10 for me. Then I went with the 1990 remake of Night of the Living Dead. And, Tom Savini kills it. Tony Todd kills it. Patricia Tallman kills it as Barbara. When the original Barbara just kind of sat around just freaking out and being a zombie herself. Well, in this one, Patricia she is not taking any shit. One of the few remakes that stands pretty close to the power of the original. This one I give a 9 out of 10 to. Next up, we have Hellbound, Hellraiser 2 from 1988. And man, I've seen this about half a dozen times, and I always seem to forget how batshit crazy and beautifully grotesque this film is. This is another sequel in a franchise that can almost stand shoulder to shoulder with the original. This is a 9 out of 10 for me. That brings us to what might be my number one film of the year. We'll see how things go. This has not been a particularly strong year. And, I've been waiting for something to really just grab me and pull me in and blow my mind a bit. And 2023's When Evil Lurks did that for me. Watched it for the second time, and I picked up on loads of things I missed when I saw it in the theater at the beginning of the month. Just like his previous film, Damien Rugna has crafted a truly dark and disturbing story that goes way beyond what you see on the surface. Little hints are dropped throughout the film about how quietly brewing this evil is, and I highly recommend it. It's I guess you could classify it as a possession film, but I normally am not a big fan of possession films, and this just creates a whole world and creates something new with that idea. It's almost got an infected zombie vibe to it. And this has some of the most brutal and gory scenes I've seen in a film this year. This is a 9.5 out of 10 for me. When Evil Lurks, check it out. Next up was Five Nights at Freddy's, and honestly, I really had no interest in seeing this. I don't know anything about the game or the lore of it. Similar to the Nicolas Cage vehicle, Willy's Wonderland. I saw that. I wasn't a big fan of that. I saw it the second time. It was a little bit better. As far as Five Nights at Freddy's goes, engaged for the first act, but then the tone started shifting, and I wasn't really on board for it. I gave it a 5.5 out of 10. Seems like something that would be good as a introduction to horror or something aimed at younger audiences. Last film that I've seen last night, actually, was 1980's The Shining. And, man, it's been quite a few years since I've watched this film. And it must have been in my drinking days when I was watching this, because I was picking up on so many things I hadn't noticed before, and I was blown away by the cinematography and the score and the performances. And I can see why it's on a lot of people's top of lists, and this is probably reaching pretty close to a 10 out of 10 for me. The other thing I would like to talk about is Mike Flanagan's The Fall of the House of Usher, his 2023 8-episode limited series. This is a master storyteller right here. He takes elements of Edgar Allan Poe's works and mixes it in with this story of this powerful family's rise and fall, and you've got excellent performances, social commentary, long poetic monologues, deaths, amount of gore. I'm at about a 9 out of 10 on this. I've seen just about everything from Mike Flanagan, and I have yet to really be disappointed. So that's pretty much everything I've watched for the month of October. I've got 2 more nights, and I think I'm going to go with Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, maybe Halloween 2018. That's what I'm looking at. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. So that brings episode 3 of Halloween Babies podcast to a close. I am Billy D, wishing all of you a safe and happy Halloween. And if you would like to reach out to me, you can email me at halloweenbabiespodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out what I got going on Instagram and YouTube at Halloween Babies Podcast. So in closing, as my man, Mr. George A. Romero, liked to say, stay scared.